pleasure of having lunch with everyone, so it's great that we all got to know each other. So as we've talked a little bit about today, and we talk about frequently, you know, the term biohacking may resonate differently with everyone on this panel and also everyone in the room. Some people might not even want to consider themselves a biohacker. So I kind of want to start more high level. And Julie, I'll start with you. Again, I'll just go down the line. But kind of paint us a picture also. What does biohacking mean to you?
So it means becoming an N of one. So hearing about something, maybe, I don't know, some supplement, trying it, testing your blood work before or after, seeing what the advantages are, or if there's none. So it's kind of just constantly upping and changing your protocol and verifying whether those protocols are working. That's the way I think of biohacking.
Definitely. Ella?
A biohacker, in my mind, I associate it with a seeker. Someone who is on the journey to find the truth, to find something that will create the difference in their lives. Someone who's transitioned into this industry from finance around 15 years ago. I got into wellness first, way before biohacking existed, and I have to give the due diligence and recognition to biohacking, which around 10-15 years ago really created this new industry, because all we had around 15 years ago is just conventional medicine, which wasn't enough. People were seeking for better treatment protocols, better outcomes, prevention. And so with biohacking being on the rise, thanks to all of them, I think longevity really stepped up. Their longevity industry emerged in the last also maybe 10 years with medical background, where there's more clinicians like myself, people with medical degree and licenses that are really embracing this mindset of maybe we should be focusing on the prevention of a disease as much as we focus on the treatment of the disease. So biohacking is definitely leading the way into the right direction.
Yeah, Matt?
I think both Ella and Julie have absolutely hit the nail on the head. And I think when we were discussing in our pre-panel meeting, I think we all had a bit of contention with the idea of biohacking, didn't we? It's a very hard term to define, but I find that throughout longevity medicine, you've got longevity medicine, personalized medicine, precision medicine, all these different types of overlapping and intertwining fields. And biohacking for me is just another way of describing performance optimization. So when I talk about biohacking to my patients, I talk about mental performance, I talk about physical performance, I talk about different things that you can do with diet, lifestyle, supplements, or medications to optimize each of those to improve your performance.
Yeah, I like the idea of optimization and also kind of finding your truth and what you can do. So Matt, kind of as you've alluded to, we're seeing a lot of companies, and today we've also seen this, you know, offering biological age tests, offering lifestyle recommendations, you know, ongoing testings to quote unquote optimize your health, to use your term, you know, for your health before you get sick. So kind of for the people in this room as well, how does a company offering these services stand out in your mind, and what do you deem the barometer of success?
Indeed, so just to answer the question, you're asking about the aging tests that are out there and how these can stand out and how these can be successfully implemented for patients. Is that sort of...
Yeah, or any longevity clinic, anyone considering themselves, you know, a biohacker first place that someone would go to, you know, what do you deem as successful? I know you're kind of working on education in this space.
Exactly, we educate all of these different types of interventions. And I think something that's successful is something that breaks through to the masses. You've got that top 0.2% of people, which I think all being here, we're all part of that. We know a lot about longevity, we know about the different biological aging clocks, we know about CGMs, we know about continuous ketone monitoring. All of these things that we're very aware of, but the masses, the 99.8% don't actually have a clue about this. So for me, when we're deciding sort of what to teach in the courses and what we decide to implement in our clinics and what we decide to offer to our patients, it's got to be something that's evidence-based, that's really going to show a benefit and be able to track for patients. So taking the biological aging clock, for example, there is so much noise out there around biological age, and even people who are potentially in that top 20% who are just starting to work out what longevity medicine is, if they put into Google biological aging clock, they'll get 1,001 adverts in front of their face from people who have very high marketing budgets but don't necessarily have the science behind it to back it up. And coming here this morning was amazing talks we had on biological age, and to learn the different types of biological aging clocks that are out there, and looking at some of the science behind that. So whenever we train people, we always look at the evidence behind the aging clocks, what relevance do they have to our patient base, and how we can actually track progress with these clocks.
Definitely. Ella, I kind of want to turn to you for this. You're an educator, you're a registered dietitian. Nutrition is clearly a major biohack. So can you talk about whether or not there's an optimal longevity diet?
Yes, and it's actually personalized, depends on your biomarkers, your age, your health status. Longevity nutrition that I preach is based on anti-inflammatory foods that has the potential to change your gut microbiome, which is responsible for the neurotransmitters, for mental health, the overall well-being, for your detoxification pathways, and overall higher chances of longevity.
Definitely.
So if I were to name things, the longevity diet consists of, I hope everyone enjoyed the lunch today, and my remarks on the lunch. And I try to emphasize high intake of vegetables. And as you said, for the biohackers, very important. We have a biohacker here. When you ask her the first change that she made when she decided to embrace this hashtag longevity lifestyle, 1 pound of vegetables a day. And as a dietitian, I would approve. So definitely the higher intake of vegetables, not becoming a vegan. I'm sorry, Brian Johnson, but that's not a necessarily thing, but optimal intake of fiber and proteins is essential for higher chances of longevity.
Yeah, and a perfect segue to Julie, who considers yourself a reluctant biohacker. So can you talk a little bit about, how you even got here? I know that, according to Davos, you were aging at 0.665 for every chronological year. And that's kind of how we were first connected through the Rejuvenation Olympics. But kind of just going back, you consider yourself kind of just the average person, the average biohacker. Why is that?
I don't even think I'm a biohacker because I don't do all the stuff. I'm really simple. My protocol's just been developed over years. Like many of us, we get sick or something happens, we don't feel good, we go to the doctor says, I don't know what I can do for you, and eventually you find the one doctor that says they can help you, and so that's what happened for me. And I learned really early on how nutraceuticals can help you, but also working with the doctor on heavy metal poisoning was like mind-blowing in terms of what we can do with nutraceuticals and how good that could make me feel. And then you get kind of addicted to that feeling good, and I just became very curious about, well, what else is out there, and eventually found myself in researching, the Walter Longo's longevity, fasting mimicking diet and its impact on longevity, and then found my way to researching senolytics and detoxing the zombie cells and wanting to always detox because given my my chemistry, that became kind of the thing that led me into this field of longevity.
Yeah. And I think your story is also that you don't spend a lot of money to quote unquote biohack. So I guess what message do you have also for the room about what Matt sort of brought up, which I want to come back to, around bringing longevity to the masses, making this actually a public health initiative? What would you say about your own routine?
Well, one, it's very, very simple, and I think that 80% of longevity is getting the diet, the exercise, the meditation, the stress under control, and having some things in place for that. And thinking of investments, I think that nudging people, if we want to bring this to the masses, we need to come up with either technologies, free apps, something that's going to nudge people in the right direction. It's not easy to eat a pound of vegetables a day, but I just started making a habit. And same thing, all the different things that I track and measure every day. It wasn't easy at first, but now it's like brushing my teeth. I don't even think about it. So I think if we can nudge people in the right direction, we can bring in the masses, which is really, I think, will help our world be so much kinder.
I think we absolutely share that vision, Julie. I think it's so important that we take those affordable and accessible interventions to actually really change people's lives.
Yeah.
Like they used to, 1 pound of vegetables is like brushing your teeth. Not to everyone.
Yeah, without feeling forced, because someone who talks about a pound of vegetables a day, a lot of people like, don't be a food police, don't tell me what to eat. So my mindset shift around it is to empower the consumer of becoming this CEO of your health. and becoming, gaining this knowledge and data from your own body. That's what changed my life 15 years ago when my diet was created based on my blood work. And that alone, it was no longer like someone said that, I read that somewhere, this research, I'm so confused, I don't know why I'm doing this anymore. It was only because my body says that and I'm doing that. And I think that is my takeaway, or like a pitch for bringing it to the masses, of empowering consumers on becoming their own health leaders.
Yeah.
You're completely right. Unless they're taking charge, they're not going to listen to you. Unless they're invested in it, they'll just listen to you as another doctor that's told you to stop smoking, or to stop drinking alcohol, or to the fun police, exactly as you say. And I think what really changed my practice was the introduction of CGMs. So I started off 5-6 years ago with my clinic, and I was there trying to lecture people on reducing sugar intake. And sure, I don't really eat sugar, what's your food diary? Okay, rice and this and pasta. So I think, okay, but you do eat sugar. Your sugars are hidden in these carbohydrates. Let's put you on, and now I can just say, let's put you on a CGM. Let's actually look at what your sugars are doing. And I've had interesting conversations with a few people here already during the course of this week that they didn't realise that certain foods wouldn't normally cause a sugar spike, cause the sugar spike in them. And it can
Nothing trumps the 30 minutes after you consume your favorite food, the personalized data set that really has the potential to change your relationship with food. And that's where I come in, whether you are what you eat, and it has the potential to change your health outcomes.
Yeah. I wanted to kind of go back again. We've talked a lot about longevity for the masses, which I love that's kind of where this conversation has led us. And Matt, with the Apex Medical Academy that you founded, you're educating healthcare providers who've already gone right through all of their medical training, but on really bringing longevity and aging well to their practices. So when we think about some of the things that they're learning, some of the things that maybe you're even experiencing as you're teaching this course, what is it that you're teaching? And maybe if you could give a couple of examples of how you're bringing this into the healthcare space.
Of course. I mean, when we were looking at the panels to decide to choose, I saw both Julie and Ella, and I was sort of thinking, these two people are the perfect people to sit on the panel with, because they are doing the fundamental things that we are teaching on the course. So at Apex, we have a treatment strategy. We call it the Apex Pyramid. The apex of the pyramid is cellular aging, and that's what obviously a lot of us are for, a lot of us are interested in. A lot of that sort of high intervention, that high interest is for those cellular aging techniques that we've heard lectures about today. But in order to get the majority of people to that point where there's any point taking a cellular aging intervention, they need to build up. They need to build a stable foundation to get to that apex. So when we start off, we always talk about diet and lifestyle. We talk about the interventions that people can do to their diets, where CGMs come in really handy, reducing sugar intake, increasing protein intake. Not everyone has to eat 3 chickens a day like I do, but having a significant amount of protein in the diet certainly really helps build that. So it reduces crave hunkings. I help people lose weight from eating more when they eat the right things, and I find that really important when it happens to patients. Once you optimize diet and lifestyle, you can build on that with hormone optimization. Now, we talked earlier in the panel just before us about menopause and about the drastic effect that has on a woman's life. If you are trying to optimize someone's cellular function, but you're not looking at their menopause, then you're just going to, it's a fool's errand. So we're looking at optimizing menopause, we're also looking at testosterone replacement for both men and for women. So really get your hormones, thyroid function, adrenal function, all of these things are optimized. Once we've optimized hormones, we can build up weight optimization. This is where GLP-1 agonists come in, GIP agonists. And we're noticing a really great intro to our clinic and to our training academy for people who just want to get a GLP-1 agonist. We bring them out to the clinic and say, well, hang on a minute, you're right here in the middle of our pyramid. Let's bring you back to the diet and lifestyle. Let's talk about what you can eat and what you can do in your lifestyle to actually start changing things before we think about medical intervention. Yeah. Once you've got that, then we sort of talk performance optimization or biohacking, which is the 4th step. And then finally, once you've optimized these 4 steps, then you can start talking to your patient about cellular aging.
Yeah. I like how you're kind of setting it up that, it's a step to get to what we might deem as biohacking, but we have those cornerstones of aging. I guess, Julie, given, the reluctant biohacker status that you hold, what do you sort of, say to some of the things that Matt's talking about, or to the steps that you're on? Like, are you interested in trying new things, and how do you decipher between what you're interested in trying and what might not, be super out there in the ether right now?
Right. I mean, I see this as a journey, and I think given just my financial status and being a single mom, I was just sort of forced to look at, I don't have the money for the CGMs and all the tech and everything, but what would I learn from the CGM? And if, like, well, let's take a sleep tracker, for instance. Well, from a sleep tracker, I might learn that I'm not sleeping very well, so what, things would I mess with to make my sleep better? Well, you know what, I'm just gonna do those. Now that's free. And so, like, before I do all that, and so the way he's presenting the pyramid just makes perfect sense to me that, we're slowly getting to the point where, it's all, you say, habits based, to the point now, okay, hey, I am gonna get a CGM, I am looking at a sleep tracker, but I know that I've got all these behaviors in place, so it makes now better sense to invest that money in wearables and all the other tech things. But I'm not opposed to any of it. I just think, like, as he's laid it out, it makes more sense to kind of get those behaviors in place, because that's going to take you 80% of the way.
Yeah, definitely. And Ella, you talked a little bit about sort of the importance of mindfulness, and taking care of your mental health, of your stress, is another major biohack, again, if we're using that language. So can you talk a little bit about what you're trying to educate on when it comes to how the mind impacts what you're eating and how what you're eating impacts the mind?
Well, there's two things. There's cognition and brain longevity, and mental health crisis. So you are what you eat. And this oversimplified statement is actually true. However, there's a lot of different processes that go on underneath our skin, inside our body, from the moment we take a bite of our favorite food until we see it in the toilet bowl again. And every bite we take actually has the potential to change our gut microbiome, which is responsible for 70 to 80% of serotonin, the neurotransmitter, which helps us to feel good. And clinical studies show that people with anxiety, depression, bipolar disorders all have low levels of serotonin and gut microbiome dysbiosis. With that, some of the scientists from Harvard, some of my colleagues, Dr. Naidu, is pioneering nutritional psychiatry, when she's able to address mental health issues with nutritional therapies. And then when we talk about brain and cognition, inflammation in the gut, as well as the dysbiosis, which is disruption of gut microbiome, when you have an overgrowth of bad guys and not enough of good guys, not enough of vegetables. So dysbiosis and gut inflammation actually can cause neuroinflammation. And neuroinflammation chronically, when exposed to it, could lead to cognitive decline. And early cognitive decline now has so much evidence on how nutrient density can prevent neurodegenerative disease, Alzheimer's, dementia. And so this is what I teach on the vagal tone, gut-brain axis, how the fundamentals, the very fundamentals, thank you, I thank every doctor for the recognition of fundamentals, as well as supplements. Yes, I'm a huge advocate for supplements, but we have to fix the lifestyle medicine first and use it to our advantage and leverage the lifestyle medicine to create the fundamental well-being, and with that, create better chances for longevity.
And Matt, I'm also curious your take on biohacks for stress, for optimizing mental health, and maybe we can go beyond the fundamentals. What are you most excited about that you think is an innovation in the space of sort of managing stress? We know that's a huge part of aging well.
So just a quick touch on fundamentals, and we'll get into some more interesting things, but sleep is one of the biggest things that not enough people are doing. And I really like some of the innovations that are coming out around sleep, around improving sleep. So we have a whole sleep regime that we have for our patients, and we teach in our courses. And these are really, really just fundamental steps to help people sleep well, because as soon as you're sleeping well, mental performance follows. But we sort of build on that. So once we build on sleep, we start looking at supplements. We specialize in very evidence-based supplements. So creatine, if people in this room aren't taking creatine, then it's absolutely essential to have in the diet, because that increases your mental and your physical performance. And it is one of the most evidence-based supplements out there, other than caffeine. So really, really important to really help optimize your mental performance.
Yeah. Is there something, I'm curious now, that both of you, I mean, we talked about routines and stuff, but that you swear by, that if you could get one person in this room to follow your biohack, what would it be?
I think the cheapest and the easiest biohack, if you want to lose weight, optimize your telomeres, is fasting. for me, fasting and avoiding late night eating is the easiest thing to do to fix a lot of different things.
Julie?
Oh gosh. Well, I mean, I'm gonna on stress and meditation. Learning meditation has been absolutely brilliant in calming down and stopping in the middle of the day to sort of bring the shoulders down and okay, that's right. You know, it's been a game changer for me, absolutely. Aside from the diet and the exercise.
Yeah, definitely. And we talk about the fundamentals a lot, but I also kind of wanted to bring up another important pillar of aging well, which is community, socialization, and connection, which we've talked a little bit about today. But I think when we think about maybe strict bedtimes, wake-ups, you know, exercise routines, eating well, all of that, you know, sometimes I think that we miss the important pillar of social connection and community, which, you know, in the US, our Surgeon General talked about how there's a major public health crisis with the loneliness epidemic, and that it puts, you know, older adults at risk for a host of chronic conditions and dementia. So I guess how do you factor in your own worlds, in your teaching, in your education, in your clinic, you know, that social health aspect of longevity and of biohacking? Anyone can jump in.
I can go first. Well, I host longevity dinners, and it all stems from me finding the community and spreading the longevity lifestyle into different industries, complementing industries. So I work on local news channels. I invite TV producers and TV hosts to engage in what I'm doing, because what I do is I changed my whole career to, and my job is actually like optimize my own health and help others to do the same. So I invite finance professionals because of my background. I invite investors and doctors together and host these dinners, which are at 6 o'clock, the early bird special, and they become quite popular. And now global event, I'm hosting longevity lunch here on Friday. And it's very informal. I don't lecture, I don't police, I design the menu, but it's all about creating community and learning from each other and really embodying this longevity lifestyle in a more friendly and community-oriented way.
I want to touch on something. So you kind of were leading into that. You know, it's like, oh, I do this perfect diet or this or that, and I think, you know, to recognize that community is the number one connection, is the number one biohack. And so, like, I go out to eat. I mean, I keep my mantra is consistency, not perfection. And so, hey, there's going to be times, 20% of the time, I'm going to be doing something that's not quote unquote like longevity perfect, and I may not get the pound of vegetables in that evening or that day. But as long as that includes connection, you know, with my son, with my best friend, with my family, that is so much more important. Like, that is the number one biohacker, 100%.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. We've had some amazing conversations about how we balance our longevity lifestyle with having children and sort of living a life. And I think it's really important that when you're talking to patients and when we're training our healthcare practitioners, that we're teaching them you're essentially trying to live healthier for longer. And people look at that and think of two things, healthier and longer. They miss the first thing. And the first thing is living. There's no point doing all of this if we're not living, if we're not feeling alive. And you've got to absolutely have those social connections. The recent publication in The Lancet, published in August this year, showed 14 modifiable risk factors for dementia. And 2 of those were hearing loss and sight loss. And it's all about distracting and taking yourself away from the world. Not having those connections, not having those communications will cause dementia, it will cause disease as we age. So it's absolutely vital to live as well as live healthier for longer.
Yeah, I definitely love that message. I wanted to give a chance to see if the audience had any questions before we continue. Let's see. Anything? Okay. So I kind of wanted to talk a little bit again about the future, but also before that, kind of thinking about maybe even biohacks that either you've talked to people at this conference about, or that you've heard about, or more emerging. You know, we've talked about the fundamentals and also some, you know, new technology, new innovation. But is there a biohack that you're skeptical about, but that you're kind of following?
Blood transfusions. I'm wondering, which son do I get to transfuse blood to me when I get older? But I'm also wondering, is it something I should be doing for my father? I think personally the evidence is still out. Yeah, the jury's still out. Sorry, the evidence is not quite there. I'd love to have chats with any of you who have different views on this, because I'd love to come to a decision before it's too late for my dad about whether or not I should get on board with something like this. Because I think if the evidence is there, if the younger stem cells, etc., are working, then it could be a very easy and relatively cheap solution. I mean, if you've got a willing donor there, you need the equipment to do a blood transfusion, which is readily accessible. I mean, the NHS can afford it, which means most people can afford it. But it's sort of an interesting thing I'm keeping my eye on at the moment. And if anyone's got any more information about it or any experience with it, I'd love to have a chat later and find out a bit more about your experience.
All right, find that after. Ella, anything a biohack you're skeptical of, something you've been learning about most recently?
Advanced supplementation. This is something that I get questions about all the time as a healthcare provider, and doing due diligence, be very careful, trending on the conservative side as keeping my mind open to the new developments in the industry, and really trying to cut through all the noise in the marketing and finding the things that do work. And sometimes it requires that N of one kind of the dynamics that or like the protocols that we offer to clients to really see the results, because it's very personalized and it doesn't work for everyone. But the supplementation industry, especially in the US, because it's not regulated, I always try to almost get to know the founders, get to know their mission of why they do what they do and how much they care about the quality of this isolated, highly concentrated nutrient. And with that, this is what I see one of the biohack, because there's this new supplement company that arises every day, and we all need to do our due diligence before we give that advice to the customers.
Ella, I'd really love to know your thoughts, or what your thoughts are on subcutaneous supplementation. So injecting, or sort of even subcutaneous, so self-administered at home subcutaneous vitamin supplements. We have 2 now in the UK market.
That's a doctor, by the way, asking me this question.
Yeah, well, you're an expert in your field, so it'd be interesting to know what your thoughts are.
It really depends what it is. What are we trying to inject? Testosterone or?
So we're using vitamin B3 derivatives and antioxidants. And
which are water soluble, which is much safer
exactly.
to overdose on.
Exactly. And also are not particularly bioavailable when taken enterally. So it seems to be an emerging market in the UK. I don't know if you have a similar thing in the US or
The IV, do you mean?
subcutaneous under the skin injections.
No, not in the US, not as much. Wow,
There's a market for that, definitely.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's the healthy skepticism that I'm asking about. Julie, anything that comes to your mind?
I'm also watching the exosomes, and I do have a son. I said maybe he could be my blood boy, but I thought that's a step too far. But I am watching that. I mean, as somebody who enjoys exercise and joints are kind of starting to hurt if I do certain exercises, if that can buy me 10, 15 more years of healthy, enjoyable exercise, I think it's worth it. But like you, I'm watching it, and I'll watch it for a few more years before I jump in.
In the name of the personal, biohacking panel, can I ask each of you how long you hope to live? To what age?
I'd like to see 100. I mean, that's probably a realistic goal, and that's it more.
So my grandma died of diabetes very early, so I'm genetically predisposed to that. She died in her 60s. So the work that I'm doing on my mother right now, I'm hoping she would live at least to her 70s or 80s. And I myself, with that, nurture versus nature, I'm taking care of my genes, epigenetics, and all the interventions that I do. I'm hoping to get to 95.
Okay.
Great. I'm hoping to get over 100, but the number doesn't matter as much to me, so that it's the years in the life, and that morbidity span is really, really tiny. If it's less than a year or more, watching my parents and everything they're going through, I don't want that, and I don't want my son to have to take care of me.
Definitely. And lastly, whoever wants to kind of jump in on this as sort of a way to wrap up, I mean, how do you hope that this space evolves in the coming decade, and where do you maybe see the biggest growth?
Okay, I'm just going to jump in really quickly, because we were talking about this in women's things, and what if we could just eliminate all the bad symptoms of perimenopause and menopause. I mean, what if we could just completely eliminate that for women? How wonderful would that be for our workforce? So that would be what I'd like to see.
Great notes, Wendell.
Yeah.
I really hope that this becomes a lifestyle, that this is not just like for the top 10%, but really like my work is to make this mainstream, the hashtag longevity lifestyle. Do whatever you can today and really feel empowered that every day you have the potential to create better outcomes for your lifestyle.
Yeah, I love that message and kind of what you had said too about being the CEO of your own health. So, all right, well, thank you all so much, and thanks for the great conversation.
Excellent.